The mysterious SOS. The void of space was silent, endless, and dark. The Terran starship Sentinel drifted through the Black Sea, its massive hull shining under the distant stars. Captain Ryland Kane sat in his command chair, eyes scanning the holographic display in front of him. His crew was relaxed, but experience had taught him that deep space was never truly quiet. "Captain, I think you should see this," came the voice of Ensign Maria Lowe from the communication station. Ryland turned his chair. "What is it?" Maria hesitated for a moment before pressing a button. "We're receiving an SOS signal, sir. It's weak, but it's repeating." The bridge crew immediately focused. An SOS signal in the middle of deep space. That was never good news. Lieutenant Dex Carter, the ship's tactical officer, frowned. "Is it a trap? Pirates sometimes use fake distress signals." "Possible," Ryland admitted, rubbing his chin. "But we can't ignore it." Maria adjusted her headset. "The signal is coming from the Kelvani sector, uncharted space. No known colonies, no stations, nothing." That made things even more suspicious. A distress call in a sector where no one was supposed to be. "Can we trace the source?" Ryland asked. "I'm trying, Captain," Maria replied, fingers flying over the controls. "But something is strange. The signal is not fully human. It's mixed with some kind of unknown frequency." The bridge fell silent for a moment. An alien SOS. Dex leaned forward. "Captain, I don't like this. If someone's sending an SOS from empty space, either they're lost, or something bad happened to them." Ryland nodded. "Or both." He turned to his navigator, Lieutenant Marcus. "How long to reach the source?" "At maximum speed. We'll be there in 2 hours." Ryland made his decision. "Set course. Full speed ahead." The Sentinel's engines roared to life, and the ship surged forward into the unknown. 2 hours later, the Kelvani sector was as empty as the record said. No planets, no stations, just an endless stretch of space. But the SOS signal was now clearer. "It's coming from a derelict ship," Maria announced. The image appeared on the main screen. A massive vessel floated lifelessly in the darkness. Its hull was old and damaged, but one thing stood out. It was not human-made. The ship had strange, curving designs, unlike any human architecture. It was almost organic, like it had grown rather than been built. The crew stared in stunned silence. Dex broke the tension. "That's an alien ship. No human ship looks like that." "Any life signs?" Ryland asked. Maria shook her head. "Weak readings, but something is alive in there." "Barely." Ryland stood up. "Prep a boarding team. We're going in." Boarding the ghost ship. The air in the Sentinel's hangar was thick with tension as the boarding team prepared. Captain Ryland stood in his armored suit, checking his plasma pistol. Beside him, Dex Carter, Maria Lowe, and 2 security officers suited up. "Remember," Ryland said, "we don't know what's in there. Stay alert. Maria, keep scanning for life signs. Dex, weapons hot, but don't shoot unless necessary." "Understood, Captain." Dex nodded, gripping his rifle. The boarding shuttle docked with the alien ship, the metal groaning as the 2 vessels connected. A moment later, the airlock hissed open. Darkness. The alien ship was dead silent. The only light came from the team's suit lamps, casting eerie shadows on the twisted, organic-like walls. The architecture was unnatural, curved, smooth, almost alive. "Okay, this is creepy," Maria muttered. Dex pointed at the floor. "Scorch marks. Something exploded here." "Battle damage?" one of the security officers asked. Raylan examined the walls. "Possibly. But who were they fighting?" Maria's scanner beeped. "Weak life signs ahead. Just one." The team advanced slowly through a narrow corridor. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, an alien language no one recognized. Some sections had claw-like gashes, as if something had torn through the ship. Something else was here, Dex muttered. Suddenly, Maria gasped. I've got movement. The team raised their weapons. From the shadows, a figure slumped against the wall. It was tall, thin, and humanoid. Its skin was pale blue, and its eyes, large and dark, fluttered open weakly. Maria knelt beside it. It's still alive. The alien's lips moved. A faint whisper. Can you understand me? Rylan asked. The alien coughed, then struggled to speak. Its voice was weak, barely a whisper. Run. Rylan's stomach clenched. Run from what? The alien's trembling hand pointed behind them. A deep thumping sound echoed through the ship. Something was coming. Dex gripped his rifle. Captain, we are not alone. Rylan turned toward the darkness. The air felt wrong. Then they heard it. A low growl, inhuman, predatory. Something was in the shadows, watching them. The thing in the dark. The low growl echoed through the alien ship, sending chills down the spines of the boarding team. The air suddenly felt thick, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Dex gripped his rifle tightly. Captain, we need to move. Now. Maria checked her scanner, but the readings were erratic. I don't know what it is, but it's big, and it's moving fast. Rylan turned to the wounded alien. Can you walk? The alien, weak and barely conscious, gave a slight nod. Rylan grabbed its arm, helping it stand. Then, from the darkness, Keelang! A massive metallic thud rang through the corridor, followed by the sound of something scraping against the floor. Heavy footsteps. Maria gasped. It's coming. Rylan activated his suit light, shining it into the shadows. The beam revealed a tall, monstrous figure emerging from the darkness. It was nothing like any known species. Its body was covered in dark, jagged armor, like a fusion of bone and metal. Its glowing red eyes locked onto them. It had 4 thick, clawed arms and a mouth filled with serrated teeth. It let out a low guttural snarl. Then it charged. Fire, Rylan shouted. Dex and the security officers opened fire, their plasma shots lighting up the corridor. The creature shrieked as bolts of energy struck its armor, but it barely staggered. It was fast, too fast. In the blink of an eye, it lunged, swiping its massive claws. One of the security officers screamed as the beast's claws ripped through his armor, sending him flying against the wall. Jenkins, Maria yelled. Fall back, Rylan ordered, dragging the wounded alien with him. They ran, their footsteps pounding against the metal floor. Behind them, the creature roared, its heavy footsteps shaking the ship. Maria checked her scanner. Captain, there's a room ahead. We can lock it down. Move, Rylan shouted. The team burst through the door, slamming the controls to shut it behind them. The metal barrier sealed shut just as the creature slammed into it, making the entire wall shudder. The beast let out an inhuman roar, then went silent. Everyone stood frozen, panting. The only sound was the rapid beeping of Maria's scanner. Rylan turned to the alien. What was that? The alien, still weak, took a ragged breath. Then, in a whisper, it spoke. It's a Reaper, and it already knows you're here. Rylan's blood ran cold. Outside, in the dark corridors of the ship, the Reaper waited. The Reaper's hunt. The room was eerily silent except for the sound of the team's heavy breathing. The walls felt like they were closing in, and outside, somewhere in the darkness, the Reaper waited. Maria's hands trembled as she checked her scanner. It's still out there, but it's not moving. Dex, gripping his rifle, muttered, It's waiting. Studying us. Captain Rylan turned to the injured alien, who was leaning weakly against the wall. You called it a Reaper. What is it? The alien struggled to speak, its voice hoarse. Hunters. Killers. Not from my people. They took my crew. Rylan's jaw clenched. So we're not just dealing with an abandoned ship. This was an attack. The alien nodded weakly. My people thought we were alone here. But the Reapers, they were already waiting. Maria swallowed hard. Sir, I don't think this is just some random predator. This thing is smart. It knows what it's doing. Dex checked his rifle. Then we need to kill it before it kills us. Rylan fought quickly. They couldn't stay trapped here forever. The Sentinel was still outside, and if the creature could survive in space, it might try to reach their ship next. He turned to Maria. Is there another way out of this room? She checked her scanner. Yes, there's a maintenance hatch behind that panel. She pointed to a wall with strange, organic-like plating. It leads to the engineering bay. Rylan nodded. That's where we're going. We need to get back to the shuttle and off this ship. Dex frowned. And what about that thing out there? Rylan's eyes darkened. We don't leave it alive. The escape plan. Maria and one of the security officers pried open the hatch. Inside was a narrow crawl space, barely large enough for them to fit through. Rylan turned to Dex. You and I go last. Maria, take the alien and the others through first. Maria nodded and climbed in, helping the alien along. The security officer followed, leaving Rylan and Dex to cover their escape. Then, thud. The entire room shook as something slammed into the door. Dex cursed. It knows we're trying to escape. Another slam. This time, the door dented inward. We need to go. Now, Rylan shouted. As they turned toward the hatch. Boom. The door exploded inward, torn from its frame. The Reaper stood in the wreckage, its glowing red eyes locked onto them. And then it charged. Rylan and Dex dove into the hatch just as the creature's massive claws slashed the air where they had stood. The two men scrambled through the crawl space as the Reaper let out an unearthly screech, its claws scraping against the walls, trying to tear its way in. Move, move, move. Rylan shouted as they crawled as fast as they could. Behind them, the Reaper smashed into the opening, its monstrous jaws snapping inches behind Dex's boots. Then they reached the engineering bay. Maria pulled them out, and the moment Dex was through, she sealed the hatch shut. The team collapsed, panting. For now, they were safe. But Rylan knew the truth. It was still hunting them, and it was only a matter of time before the Reaper found another way in. Nowhere to hide. The engineering bay was cold and silent, the only sound the team's ragged breathing. The sealed hatch behind them trembled as the Reaper slammed its massive claws against it. Thud, thud. Maria flinched. It's trying to break through. Rylan scanned the room. It was large, filled with strange alien machinery, and dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. In the far corner, a control panel hummed faintly. That door won't hold forever, Dex said, gripping his rifle. We need to move. Maria checked her scanner. The good news, the hangar where we docked is 2 levels down. The bad news, she swallowed. The Reaper isn't the only thing on this ship. Everyone froze. What do you mean? Rylan asked. Maria hesitated, looking at her scanner. I'm picking up more life signs. Weak, but moving. The injured alien, still slumped against the wall, suddenly gasped. They're waking up. Dex's hand tightened on his rifle. Who's waking up? The alien's voice was barely a whisper. The others, the ones it took. A metallic screech echoed through the engineering bay. Then, from the shadows, something moved. The Reaper's victims. From the far side of the room, figures emerged, stumbling forward like broken puppets. Humanoid, but wrong. Their bodies were twisted, mutated with elongated limbs and glowing red eyes, just like the Reaper. Their skin was cracked, as if they had been reshaped by something unnatural. One of them, once an alien like their injured survivor, tilted its head, its jaw opening far too wide. Then it screamed. The others charged. Open fire, Rylan roared. The team unleashed hell, plasma bolts ripping through the twisted creatures. Some fell instantly, but others kept coming, their bodies absorbing shots that should have killed them. "They're fast," Maria yelled, barely dodging as one lunged at her. Dex slammed his rifle into a creature's skull, shoving it back. "They're not alive. They're infected." Ryland fired a shot that blew off one's head, but another clawed at his arm, sending sparks flying from his suit. He kicked it back and turned to Maria. "Can you override the doors?" Maria was already at the control panel. I think so. Just cover me." The creatures swarmed, their shrieks mixing with the sound of gunfire. Then, bang! The sealed hatch behind them exploded. The Reaper stepped through. It let out a deep, guttural growl, its glowing eyes scanning the chaos. Then it moved, too fast for something its size. One of the twisted creatures lunged at it, and the Reaper ripped it apart in seconds. "Captain," Maria shouted, "the system is locked. The only way to the hangar is through the maintenance tunnels." Ryland made a choice in an instant. "Go. Now." The team raced for the tunnels, with Maria leading the way. Behind them, the Reaper turned, watching them escape. It didn't follow. Instead, it turned toward the remaining infected creatures, and then it smiled. Into the abyss. The maintenance tunnels were cramped, dark, and suffocatingly silent. The team crawled through the narrow passage, their suit lights flickering against the metallic walls. Maria led the way, checking her scanner every few seconds. Dex followed close behind, his rifle ready, while Ryland brought up the rear, keeping his eyes on their wounded alien survivor. The only sound was their ragged breathing, and the distant screams from the engineering bay. Dex whispered, "What the hell was that back there?" The Reaper just, "Let us go." Maria shook her head. "It doesn't need to chase us." Ryland clenched his jaw. "Because it knows where we're going." The tunnels twisted downward, leading them toward the hangar bay, the only way back to their shuttle. Every few meters, they passed strange organic growths on the walls, like flesh and metal fused together. Maria hesitated, touching a section of the strange material. This isn't just a ship anymore. It's..." The wounded alien shuddered. "It's becoming a nest." Ryland exhaled sharply. "Then we need to burn it down." The trap. The tunnel finally opened into a large chamber, and they could see the hangar doors in the distance. Their shuttle was still docked, waiting like a lifeline in the dark. Dex sighed in relief. Almost there. Then Maria's scanner beeped violently. Her eyes widened. "No, it's a trap. Move." From the shadows above, the walls peeled open, and figures dropped down. More of the twisted, infected creatures, their glowing red eyes locking onto the team. And behind them, stepping out of the darkness, the Reaper. Ryland shoved Maria forward. "Run." The creatures screeched and lunged. Gunfire filled the air, plasma bolts cutting down the first wave of monstrosities. But for everyone they killed, two more appeared. Dex threw a grenade. Boom! The explosion ripped through the creatures, sending twisted limbs flying. But the Reaper, it just walked through the flames. Unaffected, unstoppable. Ryland grabbed the wounded alien and hauled it toward the shuttle. "Maria, get that door open. Now." Maria sprinted ahead, her fingers flying over the console. The hangar doors began to unlock. Dex covered their escape, taking down as many creatures as he could. But then, the Reaper was on him. It moved too fast, too precise. One massive claw slashed Dex's chest plate, sending him crashing into the floor. "DEX!" Maria screamed. Ryland spun, firing at the Reaper's head, but the shots barely slowed it down. The Reaper grabbed Dex by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. Its glowing red eyes stared into his. And then, in a deep, chilling voice, it spoke. "You cannot escape. You are already ours." Dex coughed, struggling, but the Reaper's grip tightened. Rylan made a choice. He grabbed his last thermal charge, a high-explosive device meant for emergency breaches, and threw it directly at the Reaper's chest. Boom! The explosion engulfed the creature, sending it crashing backward in a storm of fire and debris. Dex hit the ground, gasping. Rylan and Maria dragged him onto the shuttle just as the hangar doors sealed shut. Maria slammed the controls. We are CLER. The shuttle's engines roared, and they blasted away from the infected ship, the fire from the explosion illuminating the dark void behind them. As they escaped, Maria's scanner flickered one last time. A single red signal blinked on the screen. The Reaper was still alive, and it was watching them leave. The Reaper's warning. The shuttle rocketed away from the infected ship, engines burning bright against the endless void. Inside, the team sat in silence, their bodies tense, their minds still processing the nightmare they had just survived. Maria's hand shook as she checked Dex's wounds. His armor was torn, but the gash on his chest wasn't deep enough to kill him. "You're lucky," she muttered, trying to stay calm. "If that thing had grabbed you any harder." Dex coughed and forced a weak grin. "I don't feel lucky." Ryland stood at the front of the shuttle, eyes locked on the alien ship shrinking in the distance. The hull was still twisted, covered in dark, pulsing growths. That place, it wasn't just a ship anymore. It was something else. The wounded alien slumped against the wall, breathing heavily. "You should have destroyed it." Ryland turned. "We tried." The alien shook its head. "No, you don't understand. The Reapers, they never travel alone." A heavy silence filled the cabin. Maria's face paled. "Wait, you mean there's more than one?" The alien nodded weakly. Then the shuttle's alarms blared. Maria scrambled to check the readings. "Captain, we have a problem." On the screen, dozens of red dots appeared, emerging from deep space. More ships. More Reapers. Ryland's blood ran cold. The infected ship was never a trap just for them. It was a warning. A flickering transmission crackled to life on their comms. The voice that came through was deep, distorted, and filled with something ancient, something hungry. "Run, little humans. Run while you can. We are coming." Ryland clenched his fists. His crew, his ship, his entire species, they were all in danger. And deep in his gut, he knew this was only the beginning.